Good evening. So we are back, and today you and I are going to sit down and work on verbal ability PYQ. So last week we were focusing on RC, and today it is about VA. So any question, any concern before we start? Is there anything that you want to ask or no? If yes, then please go ahead, ask that. We will focus on answering it, and then we will go ahead and begin. Tell me. Welcome to Tokyo. Welcome to, I'd rather say, welcome to the dojo where we practice. What else? Tell me. Consistency is a problem. Yeah, there are quite a few things that we can do to fix it. I'll just give you some rapid suggestions. The very first one is that engage in a goal setting exercise. Second is maintain a to-do list. Third is you can rope in somebody as your accountability partner. Okay, so these are three off the cuff suggestions that you can work with, and then we can go ahead and maybe talk about these if it does not work. Oh, you want more time to solve the questions today? Let us see. In fast track batch, why don't they upload the lectures daily? See, normally whenever we start a batch, we start them by 3 classes a week. Then we gradually ramp it up. So I'm assuming fast track batch will not be any different. We are gradually going to ramp it up, and don't worry, I think you are going to have 6 to 7 classes every week pretty soon. In fast track, we obviously cannot really take that long to start all the classes. So we may not be able to ramp up at the pace that we are comfortable with. We will ramp it up faster. All right, so let's go ahead and start. Nice glasses. Arey Atar, why I've started using them late in the evening in a studio. The lights are really very bright, and I'm kind of trying to work on improving my sleep cycle. So this is those blue cut glasses that allow me to. So let's go ahead and begin. So a lot of VA PYQs. Here is the first one. So the most important thing for you is this label here. When you read this, you know which question type that you're dealing with. So it is a best summary of the paragraph question. I'm not sharing the directions. I'm just using this label to indicate the question type. And since you and I have been working together for quite a while, I hope that this label will suffice. So why don't you go ahead and solve this particular question, and then we'll see. Okay, so Geet has shared the answer. What else? Embryo artificial means IVF? No, no, not necessarily. Okay, so we have A, we have D. What else? So is it A? Is it D? So we have 7-8 seconds more to go, and then we'll dive into it. Okay, so first up, let us understand the paragraph. Artificial embryo twinning is a relatively low-tech way to make clones. So clone two entities which are identical. Two living beings which are identical are called clones. Now we are talking about artificial embryo twinning. So twinning of embryo is basically you're dividing embryo into two parts, but then it can happen naturally. You can also force it artificially. So we're talking about the artificial variety. Somebody was saying, is it IVF? No, in IVF, the fertilization happens externally, or the fertilization of the egg happens externally and then it is placed in the uterus. This may not necessarily involve all that. So we are saying that there is a process called artificial embryo twinning. We are calling it a relatively low-tech way to make clones. Why? As the name suggests, this technique mimics the natural process that creates identical twins. And thereafter, the rest of the paragraph goes on to describe that natural process for us. So in nature's, twins form very early in development when the embryo splits in two. Twinning happens in the first days after egg and sperm join, while the embryo is made of just a small number of unspecialized cells. Each half of the embryo continues dividing on its own, ultimately developing into separate, complete individuals. Since they developed from the same fertilized egg, the resulting individuals are genetically identical. So everybody managed to rule out B and C. It's about A and D. Let us check. Artificial embryo twinning is low tech and mimetic. Mimetic is mimics, copies of the natural development of genetically identical twins from the embryo after fertilization. Nothing wrong here. D. Artificial embryo twinning is low tech and is close to the natural development. So close versus mimic. Check if there is a difference. To the natural development of twins, where the embryo splits into two identical twins. And now let's check into this. Is the embryo splitting into two identical twins? Maybe. But then if I look at this, between these two, which one is closer to the paragraph? Mimetic, because it mimics. It is not close, it copies. And that is why we'd say that D distorts the paragraph as compared to A, and that is why A should be chosen over D. Genetically identical and identical are the same. That's why I highlighted it, but then our job was done with the help of this itself, so I ignored it. You can definitely dig deeper. So you realize at the end of the day, it's all about comparing and then finding out which one represents the paragraph more faithfully to us. Here is the next one, your favorite parajumbles. I am indicating, I'm giving you 2 minutes. If you need more time, please take more time. Okay, and answer. Once I have 7-8 answers, it's only then that we'll start a discussion. So go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, so I think enough time for all of us. Lot of answers coming in as well. 3412 versus 3214. Lot of you are sharing 3241. Let's go and check. So basically, let's first and foremost read them. It was his taxpayers who had to shell out as much as $1.6 billion over 10 years to employees of failed companies. Whose taxpayers? The Australian Minister for Revenue and Services? His taxpayers? So you know that one must come after four. Similarly, in fourth, you notice he discovered in an audit that phoenixing has cost the Australian economy a certain sum. And if you look at third, deliberate and systematic liquidation of a company to avoid liabilities and then restarting the business is called phoenixing. So if you look at third gives you the definition of phoenixing, whereas fourth merely uses it. So third should come before fourth. Now we are left with second. Companies in many countries routinely engage in such activities. So what kind of activities? Phoenixing. So you need to put either 3 before 2 or 4 before 2. So far I'm looking at only such activities, but then look next, which means that employees are left with unpaid entitlements. Now it is in the second sentence that you and I get to know about employees who are left unpaid. So where should it come now? Now if I keep it as 4-2, there are now, if we nitpick, when you say such activities, it will refer to something in fourth. Fourth, one activity that is happening in fourth is discovering. There is no other activity happening. Phoenixing here, if you remember, is a gerund, right? It is verb plus ing used as a noun. So in reality, there is no activity in fourth that can be referred to as such activities. So it has to be then, as a result, third, this liquidation and restarting. Such activities requires plural. The two things are here, and that is why 4-2 is ruled out. 3-2 is fine. Now if you combine all these, what do you get? You get 3-2. 4 needs to come after 3, so it is here. 1 needs to come after 4, so it is here. And that is why 3-2-4-1 instead of whatever else that we may have chosen. Now some of us have also put 2 latter. If you put 2 after 1, which activities are we talking about then? This such activities. Is there anything in first that can refer to such activities? You've moved over to government rescuing. So anybody who put 2 after 1, you needed to think of this pronoun called such activities. The sentence that comes right before needs to give you a sentence, or sentence cluster needs to give you a reference for such activities. Then if you're putting 1 before it, where are you getting that reference? So who's saying this? Arkita, absolutely yes, it is connected, but because this defines and this uses, this is what you could figure out. So you knew that 4 will come after 3. Whether it will come immediately after 3 or not is something that you can't be sure of on the basis of it. Okay. So that says just communication skills classes finished. Just which communications? Your college classes? Jui ma'am was on our sister channel at 6 p.m. today. Okay, here is the next one for you. So this time around, what is this? Paragraph odd sentence out, which basically means that the question gives you 5 sentences, 4 belong to the same paragraph, 1 does not. Your job is to figure out the one that does not belong to the paragraph and share that as your answer. Let's go. Okay, so lot of you have shared your take on this. Let's see. So I think three of these sentences were very easy to rule out, because if you check fourth, identity is one of the most important features of organizations, but there exist opposing views among sociologists about how identity affects organizational performance. Here is one view, here is another, and in between the two, in between so 452 appear to be very clearly connected. You're talking about opposing views. Here is one view, here is the opposing view. But then both of these are talking about complex identities. So in between, you need to introduce the idea of complex identities, which is there in sentence 3. So you'll either have 3452 or you need to have 4352, right? One of these two needs to be there in order for these sentences to make sense, and that is why what you are left out with is sentence 1, and thus that is your odd one out. Okay, here is the next one, a para completion question, which is slightly old, but then CAT has introduced different varieties over the years of questions. So why don't you go ahead and give it a shot, then we'll see. Atharv, CAT has this habit of taking you back to the kind of questions that they've asked in the past. If not the exact question type, then at least the exact ability. So when they introduced this particular question called sentence replacement, that we call sentence replacement, you realize it's a variation of para completion. So you need to be strong or good at identifying how to fill gaps in a paragraph. It can be asked in various ways. This is just one of those ways. So in terms of ability, it is similar to your sentence replacement question. So which one should we choose? Okay, should we choose A? Should we choose B? So is it A? Is it B? Okay, so far the person who is talking about Sudoku, what is his tone? His tone is negative. And if we continue this person's opinion, the next sentence should also be negative. That allows us to rule out B and C because both of these are positive. So between A and D, you notice both of them are giving contrast. So if you want to write the opposite, what is the opposite of this idea? So here you are saying it touches numerous areas, lacks depth. Sudoku lacks depth. Crosswords touch upon numerous areas, and then the contrast is Sudoku does not touch upon numerous areas. So between the two, which one tells you it does not touch upon numerous areas? A, because it tells you that it is just a logical exercise. So if you want to justify a contrast, A gives you a better contrast with the numerous by focusing on this being an area of entertainment that has only a single dimension, and that is also consistent with lacking depth, and that is why A is a better choice as compared to option D. So you realize these are the kind of clues that we focus on when we want to answer our para completions to sentence placement questions too. Then I'll have one such variety for you today as well. So here is your next question, which is another Parajumble. Go ahead and attempt it. Ignore this. I've forgotten to delete some of these, so let me do that simultaneously. Okay, Jigyanshu has shared his answer. So has Valve. Half of the times I actually struggle to pronounce the names here. Okay. So 4123 and 4312. Four, 1, 2, 3 versus this. Okay, let's check. So let's go ahead and dive into it and let's resolve this tiny issue that most of us faced here, and that is, where do we place 3? Right? Now let's look at the idea in 2. What do you have in 2? 2 says the problem with these algorithms is that they do not take into account a host of nuances and circumstances that might interfere with their accuracy. So all of us agree that we need to start with 4. Collaborative filtering is a mathematical algorithm by which correlations and co-occurrences of behaviors are tracked and then used to make recommendations. Then 1 is actually an example of it. If you've seen a little line of text on website that says something like customers who bought this also enjoyed that or also bought that, yeah, these things are often bought together, that's collaborative filtering. Because I mean, you picked up something and then the algorithm noticed that, hey, there are these few other guys, when they bought this, they also bought this to go with it. So there was a correlation, co-occurrence. So they prescribed it. But then they're saying the problem with these algorithms is that they don't take care of nuances. Now look at 3rd. This will unlock it. If you just bought a gardening book for your cousin, you might get a flurry of links to books about gardening recommended just for you. The algorithm has no way to knowing you hate gardening and only bought the book as a gift. So this indicates a problem with collaborative filtering or not? This indicates a situation where the recommendations that are being given to you are not right for you. These recommendations have been given purely on the basis of the fact that you picked up a gardening book. But then it fails to pick up the nuances and circumstances that led to that purchase, that it was not for you, it was for somebody else. Now imagine if a friend of mine is blessed with a baby and I order diapers and massage oil for babies, and I start getting all these advertisements about prams and baby books and God knows what all. Will that be relevant for me? So this is telling you about a shortcoming of the algorithm. This gives you an example of the kind of problem that is mentioned in 2. That is why 3 should come after 2. And if 3 should come after 2, 4, 3, 1, 2 gets ruled out and 4, 1, 2, 3 gets picked up. So we just had to look at the idea here. You remember I tell you so very often that there are word-based clues and then there are idea-based clues. So if you look at the third sentence in terms of the idea that it represents, you would have figured out that it is an example of 2, and that would have helped you unlock the right answer. Fantastic, Shubham, huh? That's great. Okay, here is another parajumble. Nishant, let me ask this question to you in a slightly different way. When you practice, why do you want to practice? What is your objective here? When we practice, what is the objective? And then I'll answer the question, okay? What is the essence of all this effort that you're putting in? So far I've gotten these two combinations. Let's see. So, Nishant, I also teach critical reasoning. Maybe in case you've been in a batch of mine, we would have probably talked about similar stuff. That critical reasoning is a part of our everyday life, right? So when we say, why not a recent question? The assumption here is that recent questions are better. But then go back to that first principle thinking. Whenever you put in the practice, the goal is to learn to be more accurate or to learn to be faster. Now, in these two goals, how is a recent question more useful than a question which is not so recent? So, are we saying that a 2025 question is superior to, say, 2022 question? At the end of the day, you just need to work on a parajumble. A parajumble is a parajumble, irrespective of which year it came in and whether it was there in the CAD or whether I went on to create it. Does that even matter? So that assumption is something that we constantly need to challenge. On the other hand, if I use a recent question, chances are that a large chunk of people falling in that trap that recent is better may have already actually even attempted those questions. So 4231 or 4213. Okay, so let's just go ahead and compare these now. Such a national policy. So you realize we have a pronoun here. So we can see that, and we also know, we also have this idea. The outcome or the consequence of this national policy is will surely divide and never unite the people. Okay, let's see. Then we have this clue, in fact. What does in fact do? Joins to similar ideas. In fact, what we write after in fact is even more specific, more precise, and that goes on to support what was stated earlier. Then Lokesh, go back to that paragraph. I think you're sending this message a little late. Maybe you are not exactly live. If you go back to that paragraph, you'd notice that the paragraph is now presenting the point of view of somebody who prefers crossword over Sudoku. So you'd have to look at that context. Okay, in fact, it suits the purpose of the politicians. They can drag the people into submission by appealing to them in the name of religion. So you want something similar to be placed right before to, that is how you can justify the in fact. Okay, in order to inculcate the unquestioning belief, they condemn the other states which do not follow their religion. They, who? The emergence of the theocratic states. Theocratic states, states which are based on religion, where religion is a central doctrine. So the emergence of the theocratic states, where all types of crimes are committed in the name of religion, has revived the religion of the Middle Ages. So now this is talking about a particular practice, a particular policy. Everybody has followed it up with two, which is right. In fact, it suits the purpose of the politicians. They can drag the people into submission by appealing to them in the name of religion. So here too, all types of crimes are being committed in the name of religion. Suits the purpose because they can do this. So 4 plus 2 is definitely working. Now, 1 3 or 3 1. So tell me, in sentence 3, you notice this pronoun called they. If I put 1 before 3, which noun will they refer to? In this case, the they will refer to the people of that state, the people of that nation, the people of that country. Now, are these people condemning others? Are these people saying that, oh, these other states are not good? No, it is the rulers who are saying this. So, this they, if you put 1 3, the they will end up referring to people, which is not the right reference. So, you cannot have 1 3. On the other hand, if I put it as 2 1, this they will refer to, 2 3, the they will refer to politicians, which is the correct interpretation. And that is why 4231 over 4213. So a lot of you, when you get back to me and say, yaar, ek jagah galat ho jati hai, there's this one place where I end up making a mistake. It's all because there was some clue that we chose not to use, or we probably could not even spot that, and that ended up making this mistake. Okay, and here is the next one, sentence placement question. This question type was introduced in CAT 22. So when I wrote CAT 22, I was in slot 1, and in my set, this was the first sentence placement question. So in my life, this was the question, this was the sentence placement question that I met for the very first time. Go ahead and solve it, and then we can discuss it. Okay, so far there seems to be a consensus here, and you guys are absolutely right. The answer is 4. Now I can make this question difficult. I could have made it difficult by adding a blank here as well, because this is a kind of sentence that can be put at the beginning or at the end. It can definitely not go here. 2 can get ruled out because we are only saying that it is not clear. So 3 could have been a likely place, but then after 3, why will we talk about a curse when we have said that it is a blessing and a curse, right? So that is by 4, but had there been a blank here, then it could have been a really nasty question, right? But out of these, you're absolutely right, 4 it is. But then once again, chances are one of those recent questions, you may have already solved it on YouTube or in your class. So that can at times be tricky. So that's what I had brought for you. In our next class, we'll pick up some more RC PYQs and go ahead and work on them. But before I sign out, here is something that I wanted you to uh, have and ponder over. So struggle is not a sign of weakness, but proof that we've not given up on hope. So in case you are struggling with CAT prep, if you are struggling with consistency, please realize that it is normal. All it tells us is that your intention is right. You want to do more. You want to be a champion. So hold on to that thought. And whenever despair, darkness fills you, come back to this. And then think, what should I do so that I am able to satisfy my desire to be a champion? So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care and have a great time. Palak! Have a great evening ahead. Take care.